Odds over at DraftKings right now. Leon Edwards is a slight favorite to Colby Covington. It's very close to even money, right? It's plus 125 to minus 105. For everyday language, that's a bit of a push, and that feels right to me. That is an extremely hard fight to pick, particularly if you're parting with your money. And like so many fights, there's always a question, and the better, we always go back to their last fight. There's a reason that the expression was ever created in this industry, but remains true to this day, which is you're only as good as your last fight. This is not a sport based on reality and or skill. It is a sport based on nothing other than perception, right? So when you're as good as your last fight, you're as good as people perceive you to be, and they remember the last thing in their minds. The reason I bring that up, because it's so relevant here when we always have questions going in. I know that Colby has wanted to fight, and I know that Colby was prepared to the point of ready to compete at the same day and time as Leon was last prepared, to the point that he was ready and did compete. Now I'm taking you guys back earlier this year in March. Colby, trilogy fight, opposite Usman. Colby comes in one day before this gets revealed to the audience. One day before we find out at weigh-ins, Colby's the backup fighter. He's in England. He's on site. He is licensed, and he's on weight. So, all right, let's call this a push. In terms of preparation, let's call it a push. They were both ready to compete. One of them did, the other one was ready to. Great. I do know from firsthand knowledge, just a personal relationship with Colby, that he has stayed ready. He has stayed prepared. He tried and lobbied and thought perhaps this fight was going to happen sooner. It ended up getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, but he was prepared, professional, healthy, good luck, all the things that you need. I can tell you firsthand that was the spot that Colby's in, and now here we are. I don't know where Leon has been. I've wondered, and I don't hint or suggest for you, but I will tell you, I've wondered, where's he been? If Colby wants to do the fight, if that's the fight that we're going to do, if the promotion has said that's the fight we're going to do, like nothing can change. At some point in your life, this is what you're going to do, but it's kind of important because that's how you get paid. What difference does it make? If I have to do the same thing, good, bad, or indifferent, but if I have to do it, I can't think of a situation where I would rather that was 5 years from now as opposed to now, so I can move on and have an opportunity to make some money doing something else. I never read where Leon was sick, and I never read where Leon was hurt, but I've wondered. I've just wondered, what did delay this? Doesn't mean it has to do anything to do with Leon. Could definitely have to do with the promotion, but the way I remember it and the timeline that played out. So now I'm looking over at DraftKings, and I'm wondering how much have they factored this into it. Like, you will have guys that return and ring rust is real. You will see performances from athletes that you've never seen before. You're stunned when you see it. Whoa, that guy's terrible. Comes back a couple months later, he looks great again. And you'll have that ring rust that's very real, and that'll always get identified. And a guy will fail that test or pass the test when there's an announcement that he's left. That traditionally would be done through a suspension or a retirement, traditionally. And I wonder how odds makers and DraftKings specifically would take that into account. And I bring you that example because while traditionally comebacks are done after a suspension or retirement, but always after some kind of announcement, I've seen guys have comeback fights after 4 months gone. I watched Tyson Fury tell us during a fight. I will never fight again. Leading into the fight, was it 90,000 people show up? And he had his retirement fight. He announced, I am done. I am gone. And by the time we see him again, he not only has a fight, he's got two. But they still talked about it. It was a comeback fight. Just because that announcement had happened. And I'm drawing you that distinction because if you can have a comeback fight simply because an announcement happened, it doesn't mean you can't have a return fight in the absence of the announcement. And when you have a guy that's 18, he's 23, he's 26, these things don't matter. When you have a guy who's over 30, right? Every fighter that gets old overnight. You just don't know when that night came. So now when all of a sudden you're taking 8-month breaks, even in the absence of an announcement, you're still dealing with a comeback fight. So when I look at this and I see that it's even money, I'm wondering if any of that is taken into account. And this wasn't meant, by the way, to give a bump to Leon. Well, you guys know my personal relationship with Colby. I will extend that to Colby, who had his last fight with George Masvidal, and I was at it, and it doesn't feel like that long ago. But the truth was, it was multiple Masvidal fights ago, to the point that Masvidal's even retired from the sport, and that wasn't just yesterday. It's been a couple of years. Colby's had one fight in a couple of years. So for guys that live the right life and they train the right way and they're ready to go whether they had that chance or not, these comebacks don't affect them. They're not the same thing. It's not just a physicality, it's a mentality. Where were you? Where was your motivation? And did you have the eye of the tiger? I don't suggest for you that Leon didn't. I'm just suggesting for you that I have personally wondered. The fight was announced. We knew it was Colby Leon. Colby tried to get that fight to happen, went to the media, started doing the work, tried to get the fight to happen. Leon went to the same media and said he wasn't going to do the fight and even pushed for a different opponent, which was Belal Muhammad. Now, that was very early. If our jumping off point is March, which is where Leon became available, meaning he's done with Kamaru Usman, if that's our jumping off point, everything that I just told you is done by May. But either way, for that month of April, Leon did spend it trying to not fight Colby. So when that fight got delayed, I have always wondered, was it behind the scenes and he pushed back and finally things have come to a head and this is the only match? Is it nothing to do with that? The UFC was looking for venues and looking for the right dates, and that's the only thing that's delayed. I don't have evidence that it's not. I'm sharing with you that I have wondered. And when I look at DraftKings and I see a plus 125 to a negative 105, we have two athletes who have weaponized pace. We have two athletes who have had belts. One of them still got one. The other one had it, never lost it, and one day just didn't have it. You have two athletes that have a common opponent. You have two athletes that don't like each other. But you have one athlete with a home country advantage. And you have a history within a sport when a great wrestler takes on a guy who's never had a wrestling match. Like, we have a history within this sport. But we've recently found out from the Pierres and the Adesanyas of the world, just for example, that history was long ago. And we're living in a different time. And when I see DraftKings have Leon and Colby plus 125 to minus 105, which is basically a draw, you know what? I see it the same way DraftKings does.